Welcome, everybody!
New York, on Saturday, July 16th. WWE returns to the world's most famous arena with WWE Live. Experience the hype with all your favorite superstars, including John Cena live.
You want some? Come get some!
It's the WWE Live SummerSlam Heatwave Tour in New York, Saturday, July 16th. Tickets and VIP packages are available.
This is Mick Foley.
This is Harley Race.
This is Shelton Benjamin.
This is Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff.
This is the Monster Abyss.
And this is Daniel Bryan.
This is JBL, and you're watching the MWF.
Be there live.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now joined by a very special guest here on the January edition of MWF Extra. A man you may remember from his in-ring career, a man you may remember as the legendary manager of the Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal, a man you may remember from a world outside of professional wrestling and his dog racing. We're now joined by the one and only Paul Ellering. Paul, thank you for joining us tonight.
Well, it's a pleasure. Nice talking with you, and look forward to doing a good interview with you here.
Everybody's talking about the book, Wrestling the Iditarod, Paul. You might not call it a wrestling autobiography, but perhaps you might call it a book that's a true life story of a man that was involved in professional wrestling. Explain the book and this amazing adventure that you were on back in 2000.
Well, it builds itself as the last great race, so it's a tremendous test of not only human endurance, but also since you're dealing with dogs, you're putting together a team, much like a football team, and conditioning them and working with the elements that Alaska throws at you in the wintertime, which is a pretty daunting task sometimes. And like I said, it's 1,100 miles. It takes about 2 weeks to complete, and it was a lot of fun doing it and writing the book because I was able to explore or exploit anecdotes that came back to me as I was thinking through the process, and a lot of the anecdotes had to do with wrestling and how because the dogs have personalities just like the wrestlers. As a matter of fact, the dogs all have wrestler names. So some of them are shoots, and some of them are, well, no, that person isn't like this. But some of them are, if you read through the lines, they're exactly like the dogs are.
I noticed one of the dogs' name was Sheiky Baby, and the Sheik, you probably don't know, is a good friend of ours here in the MWF. We were almost killed in a car accident with him back in August. Was there anything behind the dog's name, Sheiky Baby?
Well, he's just a classic dog, and I saw the Sheik too at a book signing out on the East Coast in New Jersey here a couple months ago, and it was fun to see him again, because he was actually broke me in the business when he worked for Vern. And so we go back a long, long way.
The Iron Sheik broke you into the business?
Well, he was working for Vern at the time, and of course, he was a heck of a amateur wrestler as well as a professional wrestler, and he did a lot of Vern's work as far as eliminating talent that he didn't, that wouldn't make the grade at that time, because it was a pretty tough deal, the training camps, and the Sheik being a great amateur wrestler, and he was in really good shape at that time. He did a lot of the training, and he beat us up many, many times, that's for sure.
So you were probably familiar with the Sheik before the medicine days kicked in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Now, let's get back to the Iditarod, an amazing 1,150-mile race. How long does it take to prepare for something of these proportions?
Well, it depends how you go at it. If you're going to build a team, you're looking at 3 years out because it takes a 3-year-old dog to do it. So if you're going to lease a team or buy a team and plan to do it that year, it still takes you a year to prepare because you have to qualify first as a rookie. You have to finish 2 major races that are qualifiers, and then the logistics and the planning. See, right now I'm training for this year's Iditarod, but all my food all the gear has to be sent up by February 14th. So it's like going to war. You're preparing all this stuff, and then you have to plan for all the contingencies. You know, what happens if bad weather hits here? Well, usually it's real windy here, so I got to pack dog blankets. You have to pack all the food for the whole trip, because you see there's 26 checkpoints along the way. So that food is all flowing out to those 26 checkpoints. You get 2 bags, and you're allowed 70 pounds in each bag. So it's much like going to war or packing for kids, because you got 16 dogs and yourself, and you have to pack your food and the dog food and your sled material. You know, you need plastic for the runners. Like I say, dog jackets, medicines, food ointments, I got stuff strewn everywhere here, and within 2 weeks, it'll be put into those 52 bags.
Are you going to be taking part in this year's Iditarod?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Have you participated in any since the one in 2000?
Well, I did the one last year. I actually undertook it from a different perspective. I was a visual interpreter for a blind girl who was attempting to run the race. And the way she had qualified in the past was she always had a snowmobile go in front of her. And the Iditarod wouldn't let her do that because it just wasn't in the rules that you can have any outside mechanical help. And so they told her she could qualify and she could run the race, but she had to have another dog team in front of her. So she asked me if I'd be her eyes for the race, and I agreed to do it, and we went up there and trained, and she ran the race. She made it 700 miles, and then her dogs got sick on her, and she had to pull out of the race at 700 miles. But there's no doubt in my mind she could have finished. It's just one of them caveats, the dogs get sick, what can you do,
That's amazing right there. Like you said, 26 different checkpoints. Explain to the fans at home what kind of elements you have to deal with, the bitter cold and the rough area of Alaska, the woods.
We do most of our running at night, so we wear little headlamps that throw out a pretty good beam, and it's cooler at night, so the dogs work harder. And then we try to rest them as much as we can during the heat of the day. And you can get anything, every segment of the race itself has different conditions. On the coast, you're out on the sea ice, and you can get blinding storms and just can't see your hand in front of you. And or you can get bitter cold, 50, 60 below is we didn't have it last year, but it's happened many, many times that it gets that cold, and then I tell you what, and just the opposite end last year, we were camped out and it rained, actual rain, so there we were camping in the rain with the dogs. And when you go over that much land mass, the weather changes all the time, and it can be nice when you leave, but within 2 weeks it always gets bad at some point. And we go over the mountain range, the Alaskan range, which is part of Mount McKinley. So, I don't know the actual how high it is above sea level, but we go over the range and then we come down the other side of the Alaskan range, and it's a tough deal.
What was the biggest challenge you faced along the 1,150 miles that you endured?
Well, it's actually a subtle challenge. The physical part of it was in the writing of the book was hard, because I had ruptured my quadricep tendon off of my knee in November, which left me about 3 months to get ready for the race, and a ruptured tendon takes minimum 6 months, and I did it in 3, so it was hard for me physically. But I would think the hardest part in looking at the races is the mental challenge, just holding it together and the constant grind of the cold on you, and you know, the way the elements wear you out and wear you down, and the lack of sleep because you're running. There is no time, you know. It's dog time, and so there's no time of day or night, and you know, about the 10th day, it's a real mental challenge to just persevere and push on.
After reading the book, it would seem to me like it's almost as much of a mental challenge as it is a physical one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's subtle, you know. It's a subtle thing. I think I wrote in the book. It's like rust eating away at a car. You know, it just eats it away and eats it away, and it eats away at your resolve. You know. Day by day, then hour by hour. Yeah, yeah.
As you can see the graphic on the screen, you can get more information about this book at www.paulellering.com. He's our special guest on the telephone right now. Let's talk a little bit about wrestling, Paul. What are some of your greatest memories of being associated with probably the greatest tag team in the history of professional wrestling, the Road Warriors?
Well, I think they were the greatest team. They were the greatest team of our time for sure, and I always said it on the interviews back then, the greatest team of our time and the greatest team of all time. You know, the guys came along at a time when the sport was in a real transition, and it's a lot like other icons in music or movies or something. You know, it's like Elvis. You know, Elvis defined an era, and the Beatles defined an era. And when you know, when you think of, you know, you can just throw Elvis out. You know, everybody knows Elvis just by one name. You know, and the guys came along when the sport was going through cable TV, and it was sort of from the old school type wrestling, and they just you know, it was good timing, perfect timing, and we set the trend, you know, for many years, and everybody tried to copy it, and a lot of what's happening now is, you know, it's like new groups keep coming along, but you always remember the Beatles, you know, and what they did for music in the '60s, and they represented an era because they were on the cusp of a change, and I think that's what we did, you know, at that time. Just brought in a new style of wrestling. You know, it was brutal, it was in your face, and it was powerful, and then they had the image that could back it up, and of course, you know, the great intangible is always charisma, you know, and it's something, you know, you can go to the gym every day for 20 years, but if you don't have that charisma, you know, you just can't sell the product. And you combine all those things, and that's what we had, you know, as a unit. We just really set the trend, and had a great run, a great ride, and so it's fun to get together at these reunions and things like that, and see the guys and just talk.
Absolutely, like you said, charisma has a lot to do with it. There were a lot of what you might call Road Warrior ripoffs that came along across the years, but no one could touch what Hawk and Animal did when it came time to ring the bell.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, there was so much electricity. Just you know, when they'd start to play Iron Man, and again, the hackles would just rise up. You know, you just gotta rush with it. And it was powerful stuff.
Here's a question I have to ask right now, since it's present-day wrestling. How do you feel about the recent Legion of Doom name coming back out when Road Warrior Animal went to the WWE and tagged up with John Heidenreich? A lot of fans have said that the name was almost whored out to an extent, and especially the fact that the tag team M&M mocked Hawk's death when they debuted Animal back in July.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't really know, because I watch so little wrestling. I haven't even seen him on TV, so I can't. It's hard for me to comment on it.
Oh, did you know that he was back?
Yeah, I had heard, you know, from other people that tell me, but I'm so busy doing my other things that I do that I get very little chance to watch any TV.
What happened was, when they brought him out, the tag team, M&M was double-teaming Heidenreich, and Animal came out to the shock of everybody. And then M&M took the microphone, and they started saying, "Where's your partner, Hawk?" "Oh, he's dead," as if they were making fun of someone that had passed away. I thought that was in rather poor taste.
Yeah, well, it sounds like it, you know. That was a tragic deal, you know, Mike dying like that, doggone it. I was so close to Mike, you know. We talked every other week for sure, all the years, even, you know, when they were, you know, like when I wasn't with them and stuff. Gosh, we were really close, and it was a hard deal.
I remember you said in the book that they wanted to be with you at the Iditarod back in 2000.
Yep, that's right.
So you were, it just wasn't a business relationship. It was almost like family.
Right. Well, and you know, that's the way wrestling is. You're with the guys more than you are your own family. And Mike and Joel, for, you know, all the years we did it, 15 years, you know, heavy on the road like that. We were family because we were with each other more than our own families, and all the years we were independent, you know, for about 3 years there, where we just called our own shots. Well, we weren't even around the same guys because we'd go to this territory and that territory, and then we'd go to, you know, and there were a lot of different territories, and so you know, you just you always have that closeness with the other guys, but it's just not the same, you know, like being around them all the time versus being around them just once every 6 months or so.
Right. It was very unfortunate to hear of Hawk's passing back in 2003. And now, when Eddie Guerrero passed away back in November, the deaths of so many young wrestlers are fresh in people's minds again.
Yeah, that's not good.
No, not good at all. I remember, as a matter of fact, right around the time you debuted in WWF in 1992, it was right when they started implementing that legit steroid drug test policy, and they claim they're going to bring that back now, so hopefully that could save some lives down the road.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. Yeah, they did do that in 92. I remember that.
Right. Now, since what happened with Eddie Guerrero, they said coming soon, it's going to be back full force, and it's going to be done by an outside agency, so WWE won't even know the results until the lab has already run them. So hopefully that'll be a step in the right direction for everybody in the wrestling business, and we won't have to see so many young people pass away at such a young age in the future.
Well, you know, it's really tainted sports, you know. Look at, like, baseball and, you know, now you got all these, like, you know, Willie Mays or Mickey Mantle, and, you know, they never had that stuff around at that time. But guys are breaking their records, you know, and they're not clean, you know, they're not clean breaking of records. So it's, what do? You know, it really taints the Hall of Fame, you know.
Oh, without a doubt.
How do you equate all this, you know? You can't. I don't know how you do it.
How do you get excited about Barry Bonds if he breaks the home run record?
Yeah, exactly.
Paul Ellering, without a doubt, present day you're preparing for the Iditarod 2006. Is there anyone else in professional wrestling you keep in touch with nowadays? Or are you just focused on this big race?
Well, you know, wrestling it's a business where if you don't see somebody for 20 years and all of a sudden you see them, it's like you never left. I mean, you just start right off where you ended. You know, you don't have to rehash anything. It's really neat like that. So last year when I was up in Anchorage getting ready for the start of the Iditarod, the wrestling came into town, and the guy that we were staying with said, "Oh, do you know that wrestling is going to be in town?" And I says, "No." I says, "Well, here it is in the paper." So I looked up, and I guess the guys were coming back from Japan, and they were having a card in Anchorage. So I went to the matches, just like we always did. I walked in the back door, and doggone it, here's Sarge, and Flair was there, and Triple H, and Stephanie was there, and oh gosh, Arn Anderson, and it was so much fun. And we just laughed and told stories, and it was a really neat deal. And I took Rachel there, and she was the blind girl that I was leading in the race, and they just really, I felt so proud to be a wrestler that night, because everybody made her feel so special. You know, all the guys were really neat and went out of their way to make her feel welcome and make me feel good, you know, and I really felt proud to be part of part of something like that, because everybody was a great gentleman, and we just had so much fun telling stories and laughing, and that was really a great night. So
must have brought back some great memories for you, especially where you had your fellow musher at the show with you.
Yeah, it was neat. I had just a lot of fun talking with Flair again, because Rick and I were great friends all the years, that we wrestled, and we always worked out together because we did the same kind of workouts, and so wherever we were, whatever hotel on the road, we'd always get up and do our workout, and there was always tons of squats and wheel and push-ups, and we did that all the time. So it was really neat seeing Rick again, and of course Iron, and it was a lot of fun.
The 2005 Iditarod is coming up, 2006 I should say, I can't get the year right.
Yeah.
Present day, what are you doing to prepare for this amazing race?
Well, we started in September, and we train these dogs like marathon athletes, human athletes. We start them out on 3-mile runs, and we build them up to where now we're doing 70-mile runs. So we're out there 7 hours every time we're running the dogs. And we have to run them, at this point, we're about 3 days a week, 70-mile runs. And we have right around 2,500 training miles on them since September 1st. So you can see that, you really got to keep building the envelope, make the envelope a little bit bigger, and keep adding time to it. But it's a real demanding thing, because if one training run is 7 hours, then you got to feed them. And I got 50 dogs, so you got to feed them, and then you got just work on the equipment end of it. And it's a total commitment type participation in this type of sport. It's not something you can really do part-time. For this 4 or 5 months, we're really committed to doing it. And we do most of the training at night, so it doesn't take away from our families. We'll go out at 9 o'clock at night and run till 7 in the morning or 5 in the morning. And so we just stay out all night, and then we go through the day like we would if we had slept. But we don't sleep, see? So that's how we do it.
Do you have any of the same dogs that you had race back in 2000 be part of this team, or is it completely new?
No, it's a totally different team. The female leader in that year was a dog named Hunt, and many of this year's team is the last of her years that she had pups. So when I look at these dogs, I see her, I see her eyes in a lot of the dogs.
Well, that must bring back some great memories. It's a great story. I would encourage everyone at home to go out of their way to visit paulellering.com, pick up a copy of Wrestling the Iditarod. Paul, thank you for joining us. Hopefully you can check back in with us sometime in the spring and tell us how this year's race went.
Well, I'd be glad to do that, and thank you very much. I appreciate it.